Do you think if Steve Jobs was at Apple, they would be on that list?
Um,
How do you think the company would be different?
well, Tim has done a fantastic job in Steve's legacy. And what's interesting is normally the successor is not as good as the founder. But somehow Tim, having worked with Steve for so long and having set the culture, they've managed to continue the focus on the user with this incredible safety focus in terms of apps and so forth and so on. And they've remained a relatively closed culture. I think all of those would have maintained had Steve, tragically died. And he was a good friend. But the important point is Steve believed very strongly in what are called closed systems, where you own and control all your intellectual property. And he and I would battle over open versus closed because I came from the other side and I did this with respect. I don't think they would have changed that.
And they've changed that now.
No. I
They
think
haven't changed it.
still Apple is still basically a single company that's vertically integrated. The rest of the industry is largely more open.
I think everyone, especially in the wake of the recent launch of the iPhone 16, which I've got somewhere here, has this expectation that Apple would, if Steve was still alive, taken some big bold bet in some. And I think about Tim's tenure. He's done a fantastic job of keeping that company going, running it with the sort of principles of Steve Jobs. But has there been many big, bold, successful bets? A lot of people point at the AirPods, which have a great product. But I think AI is one of those things where you go, I wonder if Steve would have understood the significance of it. And
Steve was that smart that I would never, he's at Elon level intelligence. When Steve and I worked together very closely, which was 15 years ago before his death, he was very frustrated at the success of MP4 over MOV format files. And he was really mad about it. And I said, well, maybe that's because you were closed and QuickTime was not generally available. I said, that's not true. My team, our product is better and so forth. So his core belief system, he's an artist, right? And given the choice, we used to have this debate where, do you want to be Chevrolet or do you want to be Porsche? Do you want to be, General Motors or do you want to be BMW? And he said, I want to be BMW. And during that time, Apple's margins were twice as high as the PC companies. And I said, Steve, you don't need all that money. You're generating all this cash. You're giving it to your shareholders. And he said, the principle of our profitability and our value and our brand is this luxury brand, right? So that's how he thought. Now, how would AI change that? Everything that he would have done with Apple today would be AI inspired, but it would be beautiful. That's the great gift he had.
because I think Siri was almost a glimpse at what AI now kind of looks like. It was a glimpse at what I guess the ambition was. We've all been chatting to this Siri thing, which is, I think most people would agree, is kind of like largely useless unless you're trying to figure out something super, super simple. But now this weekend, as I said, I was sat there with my girlfriend's family there, speaking to this voice activated device, and it was solving problems for me almost instantaneously that are very complex and translating them into French and Portuguese.
Welcome to the replacement for Siri. And again, would Steve have done that quicker? I don't know. It's very clear that the first thing Apple needs to do is have Siri be replaced by an AI and call that Siri.
Hiring. We're doing a lot of hiring in our companies at the moment, and we're going back and forward on what the most important principles are when it comes to hiring, making lots of mistakes sometimes, getting things right sometimes. What do I need to know as an entrepreneur when it comes to hiring?
Startups, by definition, are huge risk takers. You have no history, you have no incumbency, you have all these competitors by definition, and you have no time. So in a startup, you want to prioritize intelligence and quickness over experience and sort of stability. You want to take risks on people. And part of the reason why startups are full of young people is because young people often don't have the baggage of executives that have been around for a long time, but more importantly, they're willing to take risks. So it used to be that you could predict whether a company was successful by the age of the founders. And in that 20 and 30-year-old period, the company would be hugely successful. Startups wiggle. They try something else, and they're very quick to discard an old idea. corporations spend years with a belief system that is factually false, and they don't actually change their opinion until after they've lost all the contracts.